Let's shift focus to the war in Ukraine now, where just a day after pulling its troops out of Snake Island in the Black Sea, Russia attacked.
The rising cost of living
I'm so sorry about that. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first session of the Lightning Talk. I'm absolutely delighted and grateful that you have all joined us today. This is the 10th year of organizing Design X Social, and we've been hosting it online since 2021. Every year, we conduct lightning talks by our jurors to encourage the spirit of learning through the journey of this design challenge. Design X Social is presented to you by UMO Design Foundation, a nonprofit that has been creating awareness for design over the last decade through events, conferences, and design education. UMO is the force behind initiatives like the UX India Conference, Women in Design Fest, the UMO Design School, and UX in Collaborative. As always, we welcome you to be a part of the UMO Design family by supporting us as a partner, a mentor, and a volunteer. Today, in the first segment of our lightning talk, we have Abhash Bikram Thapa, Kishore Khaware, and Hari Nallan joining us as speakers. Abhash, Kishore, and Hari are also on our jury panel for Design X Social. Our first speaker today is Kishore Khaware. Kishore is the Director of Design at Mesh. So let's welcome Kishore. Over to you, Kishore.
Hey guys, hope you guys doing well. I am talking about designing for consumer and enterprise as product. The reason I chose this topic, because all whole my life actually, I was either was designing for consumer and or enterprise SaaS, but then the incredible learning I had actually, while designing for both aspects of the business, and what I see actually, I have been mentoring a lot of folks actually, and what I see is a lot of people doesn't know the difference between what it takes the mindset for designing a SaaS. Consumers are a little easier in India actually, to work for, but then SaaS is really something people are not much aware of, and I thought maybe this is an opportunity I can go ahead and let the people know actually how to create a mindset for designing SaaS. So here I go. Uh, as I said, right, this is the topic. Uh, so when we talk about designing for consumer and SaaS product, it is very important to know who we are designing for. Is the end customers we are designing for? Is it the, let's say, especially for SaaS, right? Whosoever we are selling actually, it's not the person actually who's using our product. So it is very relatively hard actually to get into a mindset of that user versus a consumer product, right? It is relatively easier to understand because maybe you are the person who is using the product, or maybe someone around you would be the person actually who would be using the product. But then, for example, I was working with ServiceNow when I was designing for security operations product, and I had no clue, how a security analyst or security threat intelligence person actually thinks or operates. So it requires a larger research to perform versus a consumer product. But then, how do we categorize what is consumer and what is a SaaS product? What is SaaS in terms of that? So generally, enterprise products are categorized into three categories. A, it's a back office products, which are legacy sort of products like Outlook, Word, PowerPoint, Excel. It's not, it's uh, very hard to redesign that product. It's very hard to create a competitive competition to that product. Even let's say Google took a jab at it with their Google Suite, but then more or less it looks similar. It operates similarly. Actually, there has not been much innovation in this sort of products, in this category products. Hence, a competition in products this category, a creation of a new competition in this category is relatively hard versus iterative products, companies like SAP, Salesforce, right? They are like market leaders in different sense. There are new startups in this domain as well. So competition is really high in this particular domain actually. Analytics, others, CRMs, etc. The other category is transformative, solution products, which has changed the way humankind functions actually. So let's say talk about Dropbox, right? So earlier we used to store the content on our laptops, on our devices. Dropbox to start with changed that perception. Similarly, every action, all the information for the projects was managed in Excel. Jira changed that perception. Communication, right? There are different channels to start with, which got changed with different platforms. That changed with different platforms, such as platforms such as Slack. Uh, when I talk about consumer products, right, there are typically four types of consumer products. A, uh, convenience product, wherein you, let's say you want a grocery item, right, or you, let's say you want a household items. So these are the convenience sort of product which you can reach out to and purchase on different platforms. Then the second category is e-commerce type, which is like booking your tickets or shopping online or shopping posts, etc. The third category goes to the specialty products, which requires which is relatively high end consumer products, which are costly, and you think of buying. It's not generally available. You have to spend a lot of money on that. And fourth category comes to the unsought products, so which is like LICs, life insurance, hospitals, etc. It could be other important security related things which you don't often buy. They could be a need basis, or it could be once in a while, which generally consumers goes and purchase. Uh, Talking about SaaS, right? So SaaS is very task specific, right? Let's say CRM or team collaboration or logistics or finance or HRS or HRMS, etc. These are very task based action, and then a product in that domain is required versus consumers. These are very domain specific. So you want a shopping, right? That's the one domain actually, a payments platform, or a travel or food delivery platform. So these are very domain specific products. How do you sell actually, right? That's irony actually, that when you sell for SaaS, in old days I used to hear that Most of these decisions were made on golf course. You go to and play golf with the CEOs or the executives who are the decision makers, convince them about their product, and the purchase is made. A decision is made. They don't care actually how their end user, their employees actually actually function with that product, right? uh, so that is a uh, uh, that is a challenge. Similarly, again, it's all about convincing the decision maker. So a lot of events are organized there. Somehow, some of the users can be accessible to this events and go and see and choose whatever works best for them. A lot of startups who use those enterprise products are mostly the decisions are made basis what the pricing is all about, but then they don't actually care what is the usability all about. Because what happens, let's say, even if you want to change up from product A to product B, uh, any new product introduction in the organization would require certain training, and that's loss of productivity for the companies, right? So either they would demand an integration of that product, or or let's say transfer of data into this new product if they want to, let's say, purchase or start using. Similar, comparatively, consumer products, are more accessible in that sense. Any end user can go to Play Store. They can Play Store or App Store. They can uh, uh, make a purchase through a phone call as well, websites, or they can go to a physical store and buy groceries and other items if they want to have the growth, right? The growth in SaaS is very hard actually, right? It's very hard to sell one product because mostly they are like based on subscriptions, right? It's not one time transaction. uh, uh, you could also think of a redesign the your SaaS product as a growth, because maybe the kind of users you are catering to has got changed. So for example, let's say you are selling to your local enterprise company or local companies, but then you want to go international. So maybe a design would be required. A design change would be required in that case, right? Customization actually is one of the important features, for the growth of SaaS product, because maybe uh, this particular company would require a certain amount piece of the product which is relevant to their company. Maybe that is, they may not want the complete package. So in that sense, the customization is required. The enhancement of the features, right? So maybe the user was using this product in some certain sense, but then they need a advancement of the features. So henceforth, a new feature has to be added, and then, right, the usage of this, how user goes about using this product, how much time they take to, let's say, perform an action, etc. Decide that, oh, okay, do we want to change the experience of it? Does it really impact the productivity of the end user or not? So, basis all those, the growth of the good growth of the product is required. Similarly, in consumer product as well, the growth is completely dependent on the revenue, the number of downloads you have, because you know people, there could be subscription based models as well, but then you could also say, yeah, this is the number of downloads we had. That also defines the success. The ratings on the app stores, design change, so you have revamped the entire design, that can lead to a lot of traction. Possibly the offers you provide on your platform, like sale days happen with different e-commerce platform, that also is seen as growth. And the adoption of the product for the new user actually, and different mass markets as well, could be treated as a growth of these companies or products. The challenges: enterprise products lacks innovation. As I said, right, Excel, right? Excel has been used for many decades now, and a change of Excel in terms of how the Excel would function actually is very hard to imagine. Uh, there are few companies who are doing that, but then they haven't. The adoption rate in that sense is not very high. This is not for for you actually. So this is not for so whosoever purchased this product may not be the exact seller or exact user of this product. So, as I said, research is research is it has to be depth. There is a deep research required for this sort of product because again you have to reach out to the actual user and understand what the behavior is. Again, adoption and extensive research is already covered there. Adoptions again of this sort of products is very hard actually because again the adoption is come does come by the subscription and purchase of this product. Again, this is a decision making thing which requires a change of the product and then hence it impacts productivity, which is like is similar to taking more time, time, which is impacts the time to perform a certain task on these products, and hence it impacts the sales as well. uh, the content strategy. So what happens in with the SaaS or enterprise product? It is all about setting up the module, uh, making the user understand of where happens what, the workflows, the interactions. That's how the SaaS or B2B products function. Whereas whereas consumer products, even the content is completely transaction and they want you to make a transaction as quick as possible. So buy now, add now, or make a purchase now, pay now, etc. The call to actions are used in the consumer products. uh, A/B testing is a great approach which B2B companies, consumer companies, perceive as a success because they can easily create multiple variations of the product and release in the market and track the user behavior, whereas that's very hard to achieve in enterprise product, especially because if you sell two use cases or two interfaces to same person in the organization, uh, it may impact his productivity. So that is like slightly avoided as compared to consumer products. What happens in such a case in enterprise products? They release the product in cycles with alpha release or beta release or market release and then track their behavior basis that and the how do we track the feedback on the consumer products. So generally it is through the pre-sales, sales, the support guide, number of tickets which has come from the customers, what is happening in social media, etc. Whereas in consumer products, mostly the feedback is upfront. Maybe you have got a rate your reviews or NPS on your product, possibly a like it state, possibly the like it state can be used for the for the SaaS product as well. Uh, so this is where my presentation ends. If you guys have any question, feel free to ask.
Hi, anybody in the audience, if you have questions, please post them in the comment section. Thank you.
This presentation was really 2 hours long. Actually, I had to cut it short so that I can just I can use it in 15 minutes. So there could be a lot of jumps here and there in context, but to try to understand. This is like 2 hours to 15 minutes was really short time.
So if you do have questions for Kishore, you can post it in the comments even later, and we will make sure to have your questions answered. So moving on, and also thank you so much, Kishore. That was an absolutely incredible talk. So thank you so much. So Moving on to our next speaker, we have Abhash Bikram Thapa. Abhash is the Director of Operations at Leapfrog Technology, Nepal. So join me in welcoming Abhash. Over to you, Abhash.
Thank you very much, Rona. Thank you, Kishore. Let me share my screen and let me know if it's working or not. Can you see my screen? I believe you
No,
can.
I can't see your screen. No.
Okay. Now?
No, not yet.
Okay. Share my screen. All right, I think we can now.
Yes, now we can see it. Yeah.
Let me start. Thank you. So I'm Abhash Bikram Thapa. I'm just introduced. I'm Director of Operations at Leapfrog Technology, and it's based in Nepal. Our headquarters is in US. I recently got promoted to Director of Operations, but formerly I was Principal Product Design Manager, and I've been in design field since 2005. So this is my plan for today. I'll be setting up the context first, and then I'll talk short about why we need design managers. Then how can we relate design thinking and framework of management there. And then finally, I'll be talking about any blockers. So introducing myself again. So I've worked with more than 300 products and startups, and recently I transitioned from design to management and leadership role. And most of the time I've been applying design thinking to produce human-centered solutions. So not just for the products, I've been producing solutions for other teams, as well as service design processes, and also have been applying this in other operational areas. And beside that, I'm also a founder of community here in Nepal called GD977, or Graphic Designers Community Nepal. So let's talk about the topic. I believe everybody knows about the design thinking framework. So it's one of the most loved or framework, problem-solving framework. And, I'll be actually going to compare some of the management or managerial aspects with the design thinking steps here. And to give you more context, my examples are taken out from the design ecosystem of Nepal, and it's a really emerging ecosystem here compared to India or any other parts of Western countries. So why do we need design managers? So obviously the first answer is that there are less managers, right? Because we usually focus on skills and the trends than the management, because we love our craft, we love our art, we love to design, and mostly we go for the skills, right? And because that matters. And but again, like I've also seen that there are product or service companies that have dozens to hundreds of designers, and like more designers, then they need more managers, right, to handle the increasing team members. Then again, like why not a good manager can manage any team, right? But again, we are designers, we are different creators, and a manager from design background is able to empathize and relate better, obviously. So during my survey and working closely with 50 plus designers and interviewing more than 100 candidates, I used to actually evaluate and also ask them questions related to how are they going to transition their careers from design to managing design teams. And also I've evaluated some of these things. And one of the most lacking soft skills most of them had was handling criticism and communication. So, like we love our craft, right? And we sometimes feel offended when someone gives us negative or criticism or even if the feedbacks are not presented correctly, we might get offended. And some of us, or in my some point of time, I used to fall in love with my design, right? So if anybody says anything about my design, then yes, I get offended. uh, that was one of the soft skills that were lacking. So we need to open up our mind, and we need to continuously improve things. And the other uh, aspect that most of us were lacking during this survey were the communication. So timely communication between clients, customers, our development team, or marketing, or any other team. So that was crucial. And another one, the very important, was the verbal communication, to express things, right? Like if you are giving a walkthrough of your design to your customers, clients, or a development team, and even to your senior, I found that designers were lacking to express their design. They were lacking to actually defend their ideas. They were lacking the storytelling. Why were they doing that? Did they took that decision, and things like those. So these were lacking skills. But again, like, these are again very important skill to have when you want to pursue towards the management. And I also found out from the same survey that the designers are signing out to become managers, right? Because we designers have empathetic personality. We make decision emotionally. Sometimes we know that we want our facts to be checked. We do many tests, gather data. But again, when we are dealing with other people, personally, or our friends, we empathize more. And that's why most of the designers are signing out and not be managers, right? And whenever the situations, like when your peer don't have good performance, or if you want to lay off some members, and again, like, telling no to someone, right? And again, taking high stake decisions because you are now manager. So these are the things they were actually signing out. Mm. So I'm just giving you a context, right? So what are we? What sort of creatures we are? And again, I want to actually compare the designers with managers, because there are so many common traits between managers and designers. So let me just list down some of the common traits, right? For example, if you take example of managers, they are not individual contributors. They seek collaboration and teamwork. And same to the designers. We designers work with different partners, right? We cannot actually work on a silo. We cannot work alone. We have to communicate with our customers, clients, engineers, business analysts, marketing, PMs, QA, and so on. There are so many people that we need to discuss and decide on. Managers do the same. Managers deal with people and their problem. And that's where designers shine. Designers are actually compassionate, and they empathize. Empathy is their mantra, right? And they are in continuous touch with their users, clients, and team members. I believe you all have done that. And managers love to solve problems, and they want efficient workflow. And designers are same. Designers want to solve problems, and in fact, in a more human-centered way comparatively to managers who are from different area. And managers, they love to fail faster, because they are also executing their ideas. They want to iterate and also focus on the growth. And designers do the same, right? We learn by working with so many products. We have a tendency to iterate, right? And yeah, and the last one, work with strategy. So managers work with strategy in mind, aligned with organization vision. So organization has some sort of vision, and managers align their team members to their organization's vision. Now designers do the same. We have products vision, and we also have roadmap. So we are aligned, right? So there are so many things that managers and designers do, right? So what I did till now is I talked about some of the things that designer does and does not do or lack. Then again, I compared designer and managers. Now I want to compare the design thinking framework. So if we designer want to transition or want to go to this different alternate vertical of design, that is design management, then let's see like how we can compare the design thinking framework. So before focusing on design thinking framework, it's obvious like you need to know about design thinking. You should have practiced that. And why design thinking? Because we already know some, and not other frameworks, the design thinking framework itself. Because other frameworks are mostly derived from the design thinking, and it's the only one single source of truth. And even Google's Design Sprint, Double Diamond, and other Lean UX, any other frameworks are derived from the design thinking. And why learn other frameworks? First, learn the design thinking, right? And again, while my transition happened to myself from design to operation, I read many books and also did trainings. But the problem was I was not able to relate. And the only thing that I was able to relate with was the design thinking, because design thinking is something that I've been practicing for many years, right? For last 10 years, I've been designing and also applying design thinking and other frameworks. So the only thing that I could compare with other managerial aspects or framework was design thinking. So for to take the easier path or shortcut, I actually converted all these steps that managers do into a design thinking. So let's take an example, or let's imagine that a manager is a product designer, right? A manager of a design team is a product designer. So let's swap that role. And then the team members are the users of our product, right? Our consumers, our end users. So team members are users, and the manager is a product designer. Now I'll start comparing design thinking framework with the manager's steps. We all know that the first step of design thinking is empathize, right? What we do, we collect problems. We collect problems directly from the user through user interviews, surveys, informal chats, observation. We create user personas. We do secondary research. We gather many data. And finally, we make them list, collect pinpoints, right? Then in the management side, we do the same thing. We want to know our team, right? How do we know our team? We do check-ins, which we call one-on-ones. We do it repeatedly. We also throw in surveys. Our HRs throw surveys, right? So similarly, a manager also provides service to fill in. We chat with our managers, which we call water cooler talks. We work together. We want to work together. A manager wants to work with their team so that they know their workflow. That's more like observation, right? Then we create profile, just like we create personas. We create skills, career, and their personality type profile. That's more like persona of each manager, each members of the team. Then secondary research. Yes, how are we going to inspire ourselves? A manager, how he or she is going to inspire themselves? By inspiring or learning from other teams internally, or learning from famous or popular teams worldwide, right? And finally, a manager also does a problem gathering meeting, which we also call a problem space in Double Diamond. So after this, what a manager collects is then a manager knows about his or her team. Then a manager also has a set of collection of problems that their members have. Now, the advantage of this step is like building relationships and knowing your team members, right? So manager is building rapport here. That's the first step. Now, the second step is define, so once we have set of problems, we then categorize. We do card sorting or find a theme around it. Mostly this, so after collecting these problems, we do how might we statements. We write them as a problem statements. And then we also use metrics like urgent and important, so that we can prioritize which problem to solve. Similarly, a manager can use the same framework. For now, for a manager, it's like a building a base of a team's strategy. So a manager is building a team strategy here. How? We are going to create a backlog of all the problems. Usually, I've found that there are three categories that we sort our card. Like it's probably around people, project, or our product or process. So if you remember, in our problem gathering space, we collected problem, and they are usually sorted around people, project or product or process. People are the team members. Project or product is some where we work, and process is how we work. Then we prioritize those problems. So what is the advantage of this? If you like believe in like top to down process of management, we don't want to force our goals to the team or a manager. So this helps to reduce those forced goals. So now team members are coming up with problems that they have, right? And they are going to prioritize. The third step is ideate. We all know like this is our favorite step in time. We have lots of brainstorming sessions alone or with a team. We create plans, wireframes, flows, everything here on a paper or pen, of course. Then prioritize our solutions, right? Using effort versus impact chart. But again, this is also one of the most important step for a manager, because now it's the time to build a strategy, the strategy that a manager has, right? So first of all, manager has that vision, and he or she is going to check whether the collected problems align with their vision or not. So as a team, they collaborate, and all of them come up with solutions. They prioritize which one to execute first. And again, these team members are going to delegate those solutions to their team members according to the persona that we created in the first part. Right? We created a persona with skills, career, personality, and every other data, and now we are going to delegate them. So manager is more like in a comfort zone here, because the team members, they themselves came up with the problem, and now they themselves came up with the solution, and they are going to work on those problems as well. So what's the advantage here? We are going to increase the accountability and ownership of those team members. If it was a forced goal, then there would be rarely or very little chance that a team member is going to take ownership or accountability of that certain problem. But now the team member themselves have come up with the solution. It's like high chance that they take ownership of that particular problem. And the final one is the execution. As a designer, we do high fidelity designs, but for now, in a managerial context, we collaborate and come up with solution, and we execute them. And the last one is testing, right? So just like we do usually testings, we do interviews again, we do retro. For a manager, it's the time for the evaluation. So how was the result of the execution? Manager can get feedback from the team members. They can evaluate the executed strategy. They can even evaluate team members individually. So it makes them feel that everyone is in it together, and even if they fail as a group, right? Not individually. So this is how I have compared the design thinking steps to management, and like finally we iterate every time. That's the formula. So this is how I have actually taken my first step to manage a design team. It was really fun for the first time, and then again, there were some blockers, because first, let me tell you how I managed to solve those blockers. First, I had to clear up my vision. Why am I doing this? So I have to convince So before I convinced, I had to create a vision. I wanted to have a design driven culture around my company. Then again, I want to evolve or set the mindset of our leadership and also the people in the organization. All of them needs to do this mantra called design driven culture. And I also wanted to empathize other teams beside the design team. So I got involved in other teams beside design. And you know what? In the end, other teams also started using design thinking framework to do this same exercise, and that also actually increased the value of the design team itself. So the two tasks were complete. One, design driven culture, and second, increasing the value of the design team itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Abhash. That was a refreshing take on the subject. We have some questions from our audience right now, so I'm going to go ahead and read it. As managers, we are servant leaders. It is our job to inspire our people to empathize, test, fail fast, and iterate. How can
Mhm.
we empower our teams to adopt that mindset versus only wanting to succeed?
Can you repeat the question because I didn't get the last part?
Sure. So, one of our audience members is asking that as managers, we inspire people to empathize, test, fail fast, and iterate. Correct. But how can we empower our teams to do the same versus them only wanting to succeed?
Okay, I didn't get the succeed part because, okay, just wanting to succeed. So what we have done here is, uh, the first step is to gather problems. So what we do is let them gather the problem themselves within the team, right? For example, if it's regarding the career path, or is it regarding the process that we use to build or design a product? So they are coming up with their own problem, and to increase the ownership or the success rate, uh, they as a team are going to solve their problem themselves, right? Rather than feeding from top to bottom, or rather than a manager forcing them to complete that goal within certain time. What we do is team members come up with their own problem and they solve that solution themselves. So that is how actually I've been practicing to increase the accountability and ownership. And that really helps because I'm not feeding them with my own idea there. So if I have
That's
not answered it properly, I can again email a separate thing for it.
That's great. So, our next question is, for transitioning from a designer to a manager role, does one need to have an educational degree like an MBA? Or are there any specific requirements to become a manager?
That's a very good question because I'm myself from science background, computer science background, and I don't have formal education of design as well because in Nepal there's no formal academic education on UX or product design. So first, it was really challenging for me to actually work on the product design itself. Then again, I transitioned into management. Then again, I don't have a degree. Um, that is why I took this shortcut because I read so many books and also listened to many podcasts. I actually didn't have any go-to mentors, but again, I learned from other teams, like the secondary research I've told you. So that is what helped me. But again, that never helped me on actually adapting those frameworks because again, as a designer, I was always relating those framework to the design thinking framework. And I found that all of these framework actually drill down to design thinking itself. You can relate it, right? And once you practice design thinking more and more, even to solve small problems, then I think you can actually um, compare them. And I don't feel that you need a formal MBA to actually become a design manager because like for us it's like we are building a product, and product is our strategy, and our team members are the users, right? And we want to head towards that strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you so much again, Abhash. And thank you so much to our audience, our wonderful audience, for the very interesting questions. Moving on to our last speaker for the evening, we have Hari Nallan. Hari is the founder, CEO, and the Chief Design Officer at Think Design Collaborative. We welcome you, Hari. Over to you.
Thanks, Bhuvna, and thanks to the earlier speakers. I'll first share my screen and ask you if you're able to see it. Yes.
Yes, it's
Can you see
visible.
my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Then let me get started. Again, it's my pleasure to present and thank you so much for this opportunity. Uh, Today, I'm going to speak about responsible design. This is very, very important because you guys are becoming very powerful. uh, UX designers in particular. There's a lot of power in our hands. And in fact, before jumping into the aspect of responsible design, let me go back a little into the last century and how things were. And this is something you would have heard. There's a folklore in marketing that's often referred to. People say, that there's this toothpaste company which wanted to increase sales, and someone said, "Oh, make the hole bigger." And I don't know whether this fact is verifiable or not. It may not be true, but then it's often quoted in the world of marketing and advertising even today, but more so in the last century. I mean, those who have studied in 90s would remember this story. And what's more important here is whether it's a fact or not. That's not so important, but what's more important is what people feel about it. You see the comments on the right. There are some people who say, if you too have any such simple but spectacular idea that you believe to create a great impact, never be afraid to express it. It's supposedly a spectacular idea, and often the solution is right at your doorstep. All you need to do is step out of your ivory tower. So I must say, quite enlightened souls here. But now let's come back to this particular century, especially 2010s and beyond. While still the world of marketing, advertising, creativity, and branding, they influence a lot of things that are shaped around in this world. Uh, we do have now, with the power of innovation, product thinking, user experience design, design thinking, customer experience. Just imagine so many different tools, frameworks at our disposal that make us all the more powerful. So today, actually, designers, I think we are more powerful than anyone else. Uh, and with the exponential increase of product service ecosystems, we can create solutions that are far more impactful than what marketers and advertisers create. Uh, and I have no doubt that we have that power in our hands. And with power comes responsibility. So let's talk about that. So, as designers, we often use our expertise to create user experiences that are practical and intuitive, among other things, and we use tactics of persuasion, and it's a positive feature of effective design. But I feel that as long as it helps customer achieve what they want, it is fine. Uh, but but I will show you examples of how it can be misused. And welcome to the world of dark patterns. They are basically deceptive interactions designed to mislead or trick users to make them do something they didn't intend to do. And we as users also are subject to these dark patterns. We may be taking them for granted. As designers, we are responsible also for creating this, because the examples I'm going to show you, I promise, are going to shock you. And they are from companies that are very, very well known. And all these companies are around us. And some of us even aspire to work with these companies. So, how do dark patterns work? Essentially, uh, it has a lot of relationship with psychology and philosophy. Essentially, they operate on our cognitive biases, essentially a systemic error in our thinking and heuristics, which means mental shortcuts that ease the load of making a decision we use. So generally what happens is when you use websites and apps, you don't read every word, you just catch the pattern, you skim read. And as designers, we tend to exploit that vulnerability of users and make them go in a particular path. So coming to what are these dark patterns and what kind of categories are there? These are five broad categories, you could say. One is asymmetric, that means you emphasize a particular choice more than others. It could be restrictive, that means you direct or force the user through certain choices. You could be hiding information. You could put information in fine print that users may not observe, notice. It could be covert, uh, doing things without users' knowledge, right? Like sneak into basket, for example. You added something in cart only to later realize that there are two items, not one item. And I'll show you some examples. Or also deceptive, that means misleading statements or omissions. Uh, these are taken from darkpatterns.org. If you have time, go through that later. There are about 13 different dark patterns identified there. I'm not going to speak about each one of them. I've picked some favorites, or I would say more than favorites. Favorites is a bad word for this. Most commonly prevalent and something that you can relate to. We don't have time to go through each and every one of them, but the whole point here is that identify a dark pattern and see the real life example of how it is being implemented. But more than that, since as designers you are responsible for them, what could you do to prevent, right? How could you make it right? Because we also can make it right. So the first example I'm going to give you is friend spam, also known as contact harvesting. It's both asymmetric and deceptive. Essentially, what companies do is they manipulate a user to give access to their private information, especially the contact list, making it seem to the user that it would be beneficial for them, but that is actually being used for the company's own benefit. And the metric that's prioritized is new signups. And the example, it's none other than LinkedIn. They did this in 2014, and you can see how cleverly the UI has been designed. You would put in your email ID and they would get access to your contact list, but there's a small fine print at the bottom, skip this step. So, and your email is actually pre-filled. So as a user, you will instinctively click on continue and give the company access. Now, what also can happen, and what actually happened, is in 2015 there was a lawsuit against the company, and they had to pay $13 million in fine. Now, as designers, as responsible designers, what could you do to make it right? You must fight for full disclosure, informing the users accurately and honestly of the outcome, or even taking their consent before sending auto emails to their address books, right? Also, move controls of their data to the users. Do not leave the control of user data in the hands of data harvesters sitting behind the scenes. You could do this to make it right. Coming to the second one, it's called bait and switch. It is deceptive, it's also covert, it also hides information. Essentially, the user clicks through many CTAs, and during the time of clicking those CTAs, suddenly the meaning of CTA itself changes. In the speed of users clicking those CTAs, they do not realize what they are clicking, and they unintendedly make certain mistakes. Uh, so luring the users by offering a desirable deal, for example, and here the metric being prioritized is new signups and conversions. So a very classic example is Windows 10. This was during 2016. You see that little red box with cross on it. It was earlier to this. It was supposed to be meant for declining. That means you close that. You are not. The operating system is not allowed to upgrade. But they changed the meaning of that cross. And when you close this, it would actually go and update the OS. And this actually caused a huge backlash from users of previous versions of Windows. And this actually happened. And how could you make it right? You always fight for giving a fair warning. Allow the user enough time to change their mind, disclosing the consequences of the user's actions, such as clicking a button which conventionally means something else, or guide the user and assure them that design is not meant to trick them. Coming to the next one, it's called sneak into basket. All of us have got a lot of things snuck into our basket, but imagine you're in a supermarket, the real supermarket. I'm not talking about an app, and you have put some 10 items, and the cashier has put the 11th item and billed you for it. Now you will go and fight with them, right? And because you didn't intend to buy that in the first place. But in digital experiences, this is actually happening all around us, sneakily adding offers or items in the customer's basket without their permission, right? And the metric being prioritized is new signups and conversions again here. The classic example is Zomato, which sneakily puts, you know, some kind of, donations, which in the speed of offering, because ordering because you're hungry, you do not notice the amount and you just order. But your intention was actually not to do that. And another example is actually Google. When you set up a Google Calendar, in fact, this happened today. The meeting link came and there were two links. There was Google Meet link and there is this link that I'm using right now. Whereas the person who created the calendar did not intend to send a Google Meet link in the first place, right? That's also a very sneaky tactic employed to prioritize new signups by users. How could you make it right? You could eliminate this sneakiness, give user an option to choose additional items in the cart, making a recommendation rather than auto-updating orders. Also, altering the order quantity, order items, or purchase value should be up to the user and not a default choice. In fact, it's a very contradictory term. How can something be default when you're giving a choice? So, actually, you should not do that at all. Coming to the next one, this is called trick question. Again, we face this time and again. It is both asymmetric and deceptive. Essentially, they are like riddles. They can be questions or statements that elicit a certain call to action by the user, framed in such a way that the user gets confused about how to answer the question. It's a very convoluted way of getting a user agree to something. And when they do make a decision, the end result is not what the user had intended or in their best interest. Again, the metrics being prioritized are new signups, new downloads, or retention. Some of the examples that you can see, for example, LinkedIn, this happens even now. Try opening LinkedIn on mobile browser. If you haven't downloaded the app, you will see this message that you see on top. Uh, there you have two options, continue with mobile web. You really do not know what it means when you click what. So when you click on continue, it will take you to App Store and ask you to install the app. Whereas when you continue with mobile web, yes, you continue browsing on it. So it's a little unclear as to what user is supposed to do. Similarly, with this postal service called Sky, the opt-in, opt-out checkboxes. Just read that statement over there. What are you supposed to do? What do you make of that statement? Right? Sky may contact you about products and services you may like unless you click to opt out. What happens when you check that or uncheck that? Right? It's very, very confusing, and it qualifies to be a trick question to lure users to click. And as responsible designers, how do you make it right? First of all, say it right. Wording the questions and statements accurately using simple, non-confusing language. In fact, at some point, UX designers could say that content is not in our hands, but today it's not that anymore. Content writing is very much, in fact, UX content writing is very much a UX discipline. So you take ownership of this. Also, avoid double negatives in the question or statement and calls to action. And ensure checkboxes and button clicks must be for getting agreement. It should not be default checked. Another dark pattern is called privacy zuckering. No prizes for guessing. It's named after Mark Zuckerberg because of Facebook's privacy practices around 2010s. This is asymmetric, deceptive, and it also hides information. Some platforms act as data brokers who collect and sell information to other companies. Now, this is used for monetization, data monetization, which is very big these days. And sometimes services try to take bundled consent for a lot of different kinds of personal information of the user altogether. So, when you give a bundled consent, that means you do not really know what is happening to the data. Again, the data, how to use the data is not in the hands of the user, it's in the hands of the data harvester. So here the metric being prioritized is additional revenue from advertising and or data blockage. So again, the classic examples, Facebook, for example, facial recognition in that app. There are multiple kinds of permissions that you give in with one button, so you're really confused with what you're doing there. Uh, Even Google employs these tactics. They provide free services but monetized on user data instead, right? Google is actually, in fact, looking at a total fine of euro 150 million for its cookie consent troubles, and Facebook is slated to pay around 60 million euro, and the failure to comply could result in additional 100,000 euro per day. So it's not cool to employ these tactics because you could also face backlash and even legal troubles. And more, this is being receiving a huge amount of backlash from the community. How could you make it right? First of all, respect the user's privacy. Everyone has right to privacy, which should not be invaded by any means. The control to draw the line around what can be shared and how much should be in the hands of the user and not any digital service provider. Then finally, this pattern is called misdirection. Essentially, a user is taken down a path where they may sign up for a service or purchase a product that they may not have originally intended. So it is actually creating a customer experience journey or map and creating a misdirection for the user so that again the business benefits from it. Again, the metrics being prioritized here could be new signups or revenue. This is a classic example from Paytm, for example. So if you try to pay a mobile bill, the default choice is pay that amount and set up automatic. And in the journey that the customer is taking, you are quickly clicking that button to pay the bill. So you do not notice this thing, and then you click and end up creating automatic payments, which may not have been actually the original user's intent. Again, as responsible designers, what could we do? Firstly, give every option equal importance and always confirm the choices made by the users. For example, in retail spaces, the customer is given plenty of breathing room to make a decision. Also, making the user's experience as intuitive as possible will enable building trust and loyalty by the users, who will not only repeat purchases but also recommend the product or service to their family and friends. Now, why do companies use these dark patterns? The simple answer is because they work. Unfortunate, but they work to provide business outcomes. But in the short term, also at the cost of customer loyalty and trust. Now let's get real. A 2019 report from Princeton University analyzed some 53,000 product pages, and they say that 11% of the sites surveyed featured dark patterns. And I'm sure this is going to increase. This amount, 11%, I'm still surprised it's very low. It could actually go up to 25% in the near term. That's because of an increasing population of designers who sign up to deliver business outcomes driven by data with little regards to the user. So my request to all designers is try and be conscious of this. It's not cool to fool your users. And do not subject your users to those experiences that you yourself do not want to experience. That's a simple rule you should follow to be responsible. Thank you. Few references. You will get access to this, I suppose, this video. You can go and check out. There is a lot of research on dark patterns. There are a lot of also legal lawsuits that are documented over here. Do go and take a look. And if you have any further questions you want to connect, those are my Twitter handles and my LinkedIn profile handles. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that insightful talk, Hari. That was, I think it's very relatable to all of us and a lot of people in the audience as well. We've seen these dark patterns, but we've never realized that these were patterns set up to, trick users. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
So now I request Rohan, the co-founder of Happening Design Studio, to tell you guys a little more about Design X Social, what's happening, and what you can expect in the next few weeks.
Thank you so much, Bhuvana, and thank you to all the wonderful speakers for the talks over the last 1 hour. It's been pretty great to hear some interesting ideas and on some very interesting topics. And I also see a lot of people enjoying these talks, so that's pretty great to know. Quickly to just introduce myself, I'm Rohan. I head Happening Design Studio, and I'm also the co-chair at Yomo Design. I've been part of this Design X Social for quite a few years now, and very, very excited to see the kind of output and the kind of ideas that have come out of this wonderful competition and this journey so far. And I'm very excited to see the people who are going to get shortlisted and move on to the awards ceremony and so on. But overall, I would say very interesting ideas, and the jury and the mentors have also been supporting this entire process uh, throughout and been very supportive of all the uh, team members of all the Yomo team's effort and so on. So very great to be a part of this and see how teams are progressing. To quickly just talk about what has been happened so far and what will happen in the next couple of weeks. Firstly, the submission phase is just got completed, where a lot of teams have submitted their work, and it's now undergoing a process of shortlisting to the jury. So all your work that you've submitted, your presentation and your video, is with the jury, who's currently reviewing this and rating it against the set criteria. The next step, obviously, is going to be the shortlisting, and we are going to announce the shortlisted candidates, which is going to be on the 21st of August. And post that, there's going to be a live session where the shortlisted candidates get to pitch their ideas and their journey to the jury, and then go on to win awards. But there's a interesting thing here that I would actually want to talk about for all the participants who are part of Design X Social. The first thing is obviously there are a number of awards per category, which is for best design and best jury award. But there's also one award for the most popular award, or the People's Choice Award. So for this, you do not need to get shortlisted. We are completely leaving this in the hands of the design community and in the hands of people, where they get to vote, or they get to decide whether your idea is great and would require the attention of people, or they believe that this particular idea or this particular process or journey that you do would be appreciated by people. So, what I mean by this is the ideas that you all share, or your videos that you share on your social channels, that is going to get absorbed by people, and we are going to evaluate at the end of the competition. That is, I think, by 27th, we will evaluate how many hours of unique views that your video has gotten, and we will uh, give away the most popular award, or the People's Choice Award, to that particular team. So, what you essentially have to do, or what the opportunity here is, that you take your link that has already been published. I'm sure you all have access to it. It's on the Yomo's website, and it's also should be on the Yomo's YouTube channel. So take that link and publish it on all your social channels, share it with your friends and family. Make sure you market your idea as much as possible. And the team that has the most number of unique views will get this particular award. And you have time until 27th of August to market your idea and to kind of share it with as many people as possible. And I'm sure this is going to be something very exciting, because um, there have been cases where the teams that have shortlisted, or that have also not shortlisted, have won this particular award. So there's really no barrier set here in terms of what your work can do. It's nothing to do with the jury. It's nothing to do with UMO. It's nothing to do with anybody. It's just your idea speaks for itself to the people, to the community members, who get to take a look at your video and say if it's actually worth spending time or worth viewing it. So We would encourage all of you to share your videos as much as possible. Make sure they go through the entire video. Make sure they give a like or share it with other people or drop a comment on YouTube. Whatever you need to do to basically spread your video to as many people as possible. So that's one very interesting award that we have, which all of you have the opportunity to grab onto. So give it your best shot, and we look forward to the winners for all these categories. And as such, I hope you all have enjoyed this particular session. We will be doing a session the next week, and also the next weekend, which is going to be uh, 2 weekends from now, which is going to be the awards ceremony, where we will have some jury members give a couple of more talks and maybe encourage you or educate you all on some pretty interesting topics. So stay tuned for that, and please be a part of the community, absorb as much information as possible, because after you get shortlisted, you still have maybe a week or so to kind of tweak your idea further before you go on to finally present to the jury. So that's all I got to say. So uh, good luck to all the members who've submitted. We really appreciate your effort and your thought process and your ideas, and we also admire your passion for the social impact that you want to create through your work and through your idea. I'm sure the jury and the mentors are having a wonderful time interacting with you or interacting with your work. Please do stay tuned, and I will maybe see you all next week. Over to you, Bhuvna.
Thank you so much, Rohan. So I'd like to conclude this by thanking our jurors, our speakers today, and all you wonderful audience for being here, for joining us. Thank you again. Good night and have a great weekend.